The sleek research vessel Star Seeker glided silently into the Sol system, its advanced sensors sweeping across the planets one by one. Captain Smith stood on the bridge, his four eyes blinking in sequence as he watched the main screen. His gray skin wrinkled with interest as they approached the third planet from the sun. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings from the blue planet," said First Officer Wilson, his tentacles moving quickly across the control panel. "The atmospheric composition. This can't be right." Smith moved closer to the display, his protective membrane automatically adjusting to the bright screen. "What seems to be the problem?" "The scanners show approximately 21% oxygen in the atmosphere." Wilson's voice trembled slightly. That's impossible. Nothing could survive in such a toxic environment." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member knew that oxygen levels above 3% were considered extremely dangerous across known space. Oxygen was highly reactive and corrosive. It destroyed materials and living tissue alike. Most advanced civilizations lived in carefully controlled environments with less than 1% oxygen. "Run the scans again," Smith ordered, his professional calm hiding his growing unease. "Check for equipment malfunction." The results came back the same. Not only was the atmosphere rich in this deadly gas, but the sensors also detected something even more baffling: signs of an advanced civilization. "Look at these readings," Research Chief Taylor pointed at another screen. "There are massive structures on the surface. Networks of artificial lights, flying vehicles, radio signals. But how can anything survive, let alone build a civilization, in such conditions?" Smith studied the data carefully. His species had achieved space travel over 1,000 years ago, and in all that time, they had never encountered life forms that could survive in an oxygen-rich environment. Such conditions were used in industrial cleaning to strip away contamination. The very idea of creatures living in it seemed absurd. "Perhaps they live in protected environments," Wilson suggested, "sealed habitats with proper atmospheric conditions." But as they moved closer and their scans became more detailed, this theory fell apart. The beings on the planet, humans according to their intercepted communications, walked freely in the oxygen-rich air. They didn't wear protective suits. They didn't live in sealed environments. "Captain," Security Officer Roberts called out suddenly, "you need to see this." The main screen showed a human settlement. As they watched, their sensors detected multiple small sources of active oxidation, what the humans called fire, inside their dwellings and in designated outdoor areas. They're deliberately creating oxidation reactions for food preparation," Taylor said in disbelief. "They're cooking using fire, in an oxygen-rich atmosphere. They should all be dead." Smith felt his protective membrane ripple with shock. These humans weren't just surviving in this deadly environment. They were using its deadly properties as tools. They were harnessing oxidation reactions in their daily lives, as if it was perfectly natural. "Send a probe," Smith ordered after several moments of thought. "We need closer observations, and prepare a preliminary report for the Galactic Science Council. They need to know about this immediately." As the probe launched toward Earth, Smith couldn't shake off his unease. Everything they knew about biology and chemistry said this shouldn't be possible. Either their understanding of life was fundamentally flawed, or these humans were something entirely new. "Add a warning label to the report," he told Wilson. "Mark this system as potentially hazardous. We don't know what other surprises these oxygen breathers might have for us." The crew watched as the probe disappeared into Earth's atmosphere, each lost in their own thoughts about the implications of their discovery. They had come looking for new life forms, but they had found something that challenged the very foundations of their scientific knowledge. In their careful, controlled environments, with their stable, non-reactive atmospheres, none of them could have imagined that the deadliest environment they had ever encountered would be the cradle of a rising civilization. And none of them suspected that this was just the beginning of their surprises about the creatures called humans. What they saw as a weakness, the ability to survive in an oxygen-rich environment, would soon prove to be one of humanity's greatest strengths. The probe's data streams filled the screens aboard the Star Seeker Asterisk, leaving the alien crew more confused than ever. Captain Smith watched as images of human daily life played out before them, each new scene more shocking than the last. They're exposing their young to the oxygen atmosphere from birth, Research Chief Taylor reported, his protective membrane rippling with horror. No protective gear, no filtration systems. Their infants just breathe it. The crew had spent 3 Earth days observing the humans, and each hour brought new revelations that challenged their understanding of biology. They watched humans perform what they called exercise, deliberately stressing their bodies in the toxic atmosphere. "Look at this," First Officer Wilson called out, directing everyone's attention to a new feed. They're gathering in large numbers in an enclosed space. The oxygen levels are rising from their collective breathing. The screen showed what humans called a shopping mall. Hundreds of them moved about casually, breathing in an atmosphere that would dissolve the protective membranes of any other known species in seconds. Security Officer Roberts added his own findings. Their military training is even more extreme. They run long distances, carrying heavy loads, deliberately pushing their oxygen consumption to higher levels. It's as if they're immune to oxidative stress. Captain Smith felt his 4 eyes straining as he tried to make sense of it all. The humans weren't just surviving. They were thriving. They had built massive cities, developed complex technologies, and seemed completely unaware that they lived in conditions that the rest of the galaxy considered weapons-grade hostile. "There's more," Taylor said, pulling up new data. "They deliberately heat their food using oxidation reactions. They call it cooking. They're not just tolerating the oxygen, they're using it as a tool." The screen showed humans gathered around what they called barbecues, deliberately burning organic matter to prepare food. Children played nearby, completely unconcerned by the active oxidation happening mere feet away. "Send the full report to the Galactic Science Council," Smith ordered. "Include all observational data. They need to see this." Hours later, the Council's response arrived. The message was short and dismissive. Species classified as primitive due to environmental limitations. Unable to survive in standard atmospheric conditions. No immediate action required. Smith read the message several times, his disbelief growing. The Council had completely missed the point. They saw the humans' oxygen adaptation as a weakness, trapping them in their toxic world. They didn't understand what his crew had begun to realize, that this adaptation might be an incredible strength. "They're making a mistake," Wilson said, reading the Council's response. "Look at this new data. Humans are actively planning to explore space. They're developing technologies to carry their oxygen-rich environment with them." The screen showed human space programs, their primitive but effective rockets, their space stations, and their plans for Mars colonization. These limited beings were preparing to take their toxic environment to the stars. "Their blood," Taylor added, examining biological scans, "it uses iron to bind oxygen." Iron. They're walking around with metal atoms in their blood cells, using one of the most reactive elements we know to power their bodies. It's brilliant adaptation. Smith watched more footage of human activities. They worked with metals that should have oxidized to dust in their atmosphere. They harnessed electricity in ways that should have caused constant fires in such oxygen-rich conditions. They even deliberately exposed themselves to their sun's radiation for something they called tanning. "Keep observing," Smith ordered. "The Council may dismiss them, but I want to know everything about these humans. Something tells me we're missing something important." As the crew continued their observation, none of them realized that their presence hadn't gone completely unnoticed. In various Earth observation stations, unusual readings were beginning to attract attention. The humans, dismissed as weak and limited by the galaxy's greatest minds, were about to prove just how wrong that assessment was. The primitive species that breathed weapon-grade oxidizer was looking up at the stars. and they were starting to see the Watchers in orbit. Dr. Brown arrived on the Star Seeker with a team of the galaxy's top scientists. Despite the Galactic Council's dismissal of humans as primitive, something about Captain Smith's reports had caught the famous researcher's attention. As his transport ship docked, his long tentacles twitched with excitement. "Show me everything," he demanded as soon as he stepped onto the bridge. His 3 hearts beat faster as he watched the archived footage of humans going about their daily lives. The research team set up advanced observation equipment in orbit around Earth. They needed to understand how these strange creatures could survive, let alone build a civilization, in what should have been a lethal environment. "Doctor, you need to see this," one of his assistants called out on the second day. "They're gathering in large numbers on the beaches, deliberately exposing themselves to their sun's radiation." The screen showed hundreds of humans lying on sand, their bodies barely covered, soaking up dangerous UV rays. Most alien species would suffer severe radiation damage from such exposure. But the humans seemed to enjoy it. Fascinating. Dr. Brown moved closer to the screen. "Their DNA, it must have incredible repair mechanisms. Look at how their skin darkens to protect them. They adapt to radiation exposure in real time." Captain Smith joined them at the observation station. "That's not even the most surprising thing. Watch this." The display switched to footage of human athletes training. The scientists watched in amazement as humans ran for hours, their bodies efficiently processing the oxygen that would kill most other species. "Their endurance is extraordinary," Dr. Brown noted, his protective membrane rippling with excitement. "They're pursuit predators. They don't need to be faster than their prey. They just keep going until the prey collapses from exhaustion." The research team discovered more shocking facts every hour. Humans could repair broken bones, regrow damaged tissue, and fight off infections that would devastate other species. Their immune systems were incredibly aggressive, much like the oxygen they breathed. "Look at their cities," another scientist pointed out. "They build with metal, even though it should oxidize in their atmosphere. They've developed alloys that resist oxidation. They're not just surviving in this environment, they're mastering it." Dr. Brown spent hours analyzing human medical data they'd managed to intercept. "Their healing abilities are remarkable. They can recover from injuries that would be fatal to most species. They literally force their bodies to create new blood vessels and nerve connections." But it was their space program that truly caught his attention. These supposedly primitive beings were planning to explore space, not despite their oxygen-rich requirements, but using them as an advantage. "They're planning to grow plants in space," he explained to Captain Smith. "They'll use the same process that filled their atmosphere with oxygen to create breathable air in their space habitats." It's brilliant. As the days passed, the research team began to understand something the Galactic Council had missed. Humans weren't weak. They were incredibly tough. Their toxic environment had forced them to evolve remarkable survival traits. "Their blood can carry devastating amounts of oxygen," one scientist reported. "Their cells have complex mechanisms to prevent oxidative damage. They eat foods containing antioxidants to help control the very substance they need to live. The complexity is amazing." Dr. Brown was preparing his report when an alert sounded across the ship. One of their observation satellites had been detected by human radar systems. "They're investigating the anomaly," Security Officer Roberts reported. "Their space agencies are sharing data. They know something artificial is up here." "Should we withdraw?" Captain Smith asked, but Dr. Brown shook his head. "No, keep observing. I want to see how they respond. Something tells me these humans are going to surprise us again." The aliens watched as humans began coordinating their observations, sharing data between countries, and calculating orbital patterns. The species they had dismissed as primitive was methodically working to understand what was watching them. The weak oxygen breathers were about to reveal another surprising trait: their boundless curiosity about the unknown, even when that unknown might be dangerous. And soon, the watchers would become the watched. The mood aboard the Star Seeker changed dramatically when Dr. Brown's team made their most startling discovery yet. They had been analyzing historical data from human information networks when they found something that changed everything. "Captain Smith, look at this." Dr. Brown's voice shook with excitement. "These humans, they've colonized their entire planet. Every environment, no matter how extreme." The main screen filled with images. Humans living in the freezing Arctic, surviving in scorching deserts, building cities in steamy jungles, and thriving in high mountain regions where the air was thin. "It's not just their oxygen tolerance," one of the scientists explained. "They can adapt to temperature ranges that would kill most species, from -50 to +50 degrees in their Celsius scale. Some humans live their entire lives at high altitudes, where even their oxygen-rich air is scarce." Captain Smith watched the screens with all four eyes wide open. "Show me more." The next images showed humans diving deep into their oceans. "They can't breathe water," Dr. Brown explained, "but they've developed technology to explore their ocean depths. They've found ways to survive in every hostile environment on their planet. And that's not all." Another researcher added, "Look at what they eat." The screen showed humans consuming an incredible variety of foods. They ate plants, animals, and fungi. They could digest substances that would be toxic to most species. They even deliberately consumed foods containing chemicals that would kill other creatures. "They eat capsaicin for pleasure," Dr. Brown said, his membrane rippling in disbelief. "A chemical that causes pain. They call it spicy and compete to see who can endure the most." Security Officer Roberts brought up new data. Their military forces train in every extreme environment: desert warfare, Arctic warfare, jungle warfare, mountain warfare. They've mastered fighting in conditions that we considered impossible for intelligent life. The research team had also discovered something about human history that terrified them. Humans had evolved as pursuit predators, capable of running down their prey through sheer endurance. They didn't need to be the fastest. They simply didn't stop until their target collapsed from exhaustion. "Their stamina is unlike anything we've seen," one scientist reported. "They can run for hours. Some of them run over 40 kilometers for fun. They call it a marathon and treat it as a recreational activity." Dr. Brown was frantically updating his report to the Galactic Science Council. "The oxygen-rich atmosphere isn't their weakness. It's the source of their strength. It allowed them to develop incredible endurance. Their bodies learned to repair radiation damage, fight off infections, and heal injuries that would be fatal to other species." The screen showed humans performing what they called extreme sports, deliberately putting themselves in dangerous situations for entertainment. They climbed frozen waterfalls, jumped from high places, swam in icy waters, and ran through burning deserts. "They seek out challenge," Captain Smith observed. "They deliberately push their limits. When they find something difficult or dangerous, they don't avoid it. They try to master it." As if to prove his point, new data came in showing human space activities. They were testing new rockets, planning Mars colonies, and dreaming of interstellar travel. The supposedly primitive species was planning to take their deadly environment to the stars. "The Council was wrong," Dr. Brown declared. "These humans aren't trapped by their environment. They're thriving because of it. Evolution in their challenging world has made them incredibly adaptable." Just then, an alert sounded through the ship. The humans had launched a new satellite, one specifically designed to investigate the anomalies they had detected in orbit. "They're not just looking at us anymore," Security Officer Roberts reported. "They're actively trying to find us. And based on their progress, they're going to succeed soon." Captain Smith and Dr. Brown shared a look. The weak species they had been studying was about to make first contact, and they were doing it not from a position of weakness, but as a species that had mastered one of the most hostile environments in known space. The truth had emerged. Humans weren't weak at all. They were survival specialists of the highest order, and the galaxy wasn't ready for what that meant. The Galactic Science Council chamber had never been so quiet. The 7 most senior scientists in known space sat in stunned silence as they reviewed Dr. Brown's complete report about humans. Their protective membranes rippled with increasing concern as they processed the information. "This can't be correct," Head Counselor Jones said, his tentacles twitching nervously. "You're telling us these humans not only survive in an oxygen-rich environment, but have weapons that deliberately use oxygen to burn things." Dr. Brown, speaking through a holographic projection from the Star Seeker nodded. "Yes, and that's just the beginning. They have devices called flamethrowers that spread burning liquid. They've developed explosives that use their atmospheric oxygen as part of the reaction. Their entire industrial civilization is built around oxidation reactions that would be considered catastrophically dangerous on any of our worlds." The council watched footage of human firefighters, specialists who ran into burning buildings while carrying extra oxygen. The very concept seemed insane to them. More concerning, Captain Smith added, joining the transmission, is their space program. They're not just launching satellites anymore. "Look at this." The display showed human plans for Mars colonization. The council members shifted uncomfortably as they realized what they were seeing. The humans planned to deliberately transform another planet's atmosphere, gradually making it more like Earth's. "They call it terraforming," Dr. Brown explained. "They intend to create more oxygen-rich environments. What we consider a toxic, dangerous atmosphere, they see as a perfect setting for life." Head Counselor Jones pulled up more data from the report. Their military capabilities. "They've developed weapons we never even considered because they would be too dangerous in our environments. And their soldiers can fight for days with minimal rest. Their entire bodies are optimized for endurance," Dr. Brown confirmed. "They can keep fighting long after most species would be exhausted, and their wounds, they heal at remarkable rates. Their bodies are constantly repairing radiation damage from their sun, fighting off infections, and dealing with oxidative stress that would kill most species." Another council member, Professor White, raised a concerning point. "According to these scans, they're already detecting our observation posts. Their technology is primitive, but they're advancing rapidly. Look at their progress over just the last 100 years." The displays showed human technological advancement. From basic flight to space stations in less than a century. From simple computers to global information networks in just decades, they were advancing at an alarming rate. "That's not the worst part," Dr. Brown said gravely. "We've intercepted their entertainment broadcasts. Their popular culture is filled with stories about meeting alien life, and in many of these stories, they fight the aliens. And win." The council chamber erupted in nervous murmuring. The humans weren't just surviving in their deadly environment. They were dreaming about expanding into space, meeting other life forms, and proving themselves in conflict if necessary. "They have a phrase," Captain Smith added, "what doesn't kill you makes you stronger." Their harsh environment hasn't limited them. It's forced them to become incredibly resilient. They actively seek out challenges to overcome. Professor White studied more data. Their space stations, they're bringing plants with them. They plan to create oxygen-rich environments wherever they go. They don't see their atmosphere as a limitation. They see it as a necessity for their version of life. "We must decide quickly," Head Counselor Jones declared. "They're going to discover us soon. Do we make official contact, or do we withdraw and declare their system off-limits?" The council reviewed more footage. Humans diving in deep oceans, climbing frozen mountains, running ultramarathons across deserts, and exploring caves deep underground. They watched humans eat foods that would be toxic to most species, deliberately expose themselves to temperature extremes, and constantly push their limits. "We can't ignore them," Dr. Brown insisted. "They're going to reach the stars soon, whether we contact them or not. And when they do, they'll bring their oxygen-rich environments with them. The galaxy needs to be prepared." The council faced a difficult truth. The species they had dismissed as weak was actually one of the most durable and adaptable life forms ever encountered, and they were looking to expand beyond their world. The warning signs were clear. Humanity was coming to the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same. While the Galactic Science Council debated what to do about Earth, the humans made the decision for them. At space monitoring stations around the world, scientists had finally gathered enough data about the mysterious objects in orbit to reach an incredible conclusion. "We are not alone," announced the head of the Global Space Agency at an emergency United Nations meeting. "We have confirmed the presence of artificial satellites of non-human origin observing our planet." Instead of panic, the human response surprised the watching aliens. There was excitement, curiosity, and an immediate worldwide effort to establish contact. "They're broadcasting a message to us," Security Officer Roberts reported aboard the Star Seeker *. "It's being transmitted in multiple formats. They're even using basic mathematical sequences to show it's an intelligent message." Captain Smith, Dr. Brown, and the research team watched in amazement as humans around the world worked together, pointing radio telescopes and communication arrays toward the alien vessels. "Should we respond?" Captain Smith asked Dr. Brown. Before the scientist could answer, another message arrived from the Galactic Science Council. "First contact authorized. Humans' environmental adaptations make them too dangerous to ignore. Proceed with caution." The Star Seeker decloaked, making itself visible to Earth's telescopes and radar systems. They chose to appear above New York City, where the United Nations could coordinate a global response. "Their atmosphere is too dangerous for us to land," Dr. Brown explained during the first video transmission to Earth's leaders. "We would need special protective equipment to survive in your oxygen-rich environment." The human representatives looked confused. "You mean you can't breathe oxygen?" one asked. "But how do you power your cells? What do you use for energy?" It was the aliens' turn to be shocked. The humans didn't see their oxygen-rich atmosphere as dangerous. They couldn't imagine life without it. What the aliens saw as a toxic, corrosive environment, humans saw as the perfect cradle for life. "Perhaps," suggested a human scientist, "we could meet on our space station. We can adjust the atmosphere to suit both species." The aliens watched in surprise as humans quickly modified part of their International Space Station, creating a section with an atmosphere safe for both species. They worked efficiently, treating the deadly serious matter of atmospheric composition as just another engineering problem to solve. 2 weeks later, the first face-to-face meeting took place. Human representatives wore breathing apparatus in the low-oxygen section of the station, while alien diplomats wore protective suits against trace oxygen. Both sides found the other's requirements both fascinating and disturbing. "Your ships?" a human engineer asked during the meeting. "They seem so sterile. How do you grow food? Where are your gardens? Your biological waste recycling systems?" Dr. Brown explained that most spacefaring races used completely artificial environments and synthetic nutrition. The human concept of bringing an entire living ecosystem into space, complete with plants and bacteria, seemed unnecessarily complex and dangerous to them. "But that's the best part," the human exclaimed. "Living systems are self-repairing, self-maintaining. They're resilient. Sure, they're complex, but that complexity makes them stronger, not weaker." The aliens began to understand something profound. Humans hadn't just adapted to their dangerous environment. They had turned its challenges into advantages. Their complex biological systems, their ability to repair damage, their endurance, and their adaptability all came from evolving in conditions that other species considered lethal. "Your entire civilization," Captain Smith observed, "is built on managing controlled oxidation reactions. Your engines, your power plants, your cellular energy production, you've mastered using one of the most reactive elements in the universe as a tool." The humans just smiled. "Wait until we show you what else we can do," one of them said. "We have so many ideas for exploring space, and now we have new friends to explore it with." The aliens shared worried looks. These humans didn't just want to meet alien life. They wanted to work with them, explore with them, and share their advantages with the galaxy. The revelation was complete. The species they had thought was trapped in a toxic environment was actually perfectly equipped to explore the most dangerous parts of space, and they were eager to get started. The galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after first contact, the Galactic Science Council made an unprecedented decision. Earth was officially classified as Death World Class 5, the highest rating ever given to an inhabited planet. But unlike other dangerous worlds, Earth wasn't quarantined. Instead, it became the galaxy's most valuable partner. The human's adaptation to extreme conditions makes them uniquely qualified for hazardous exploration. Head Counselor Jones announced to the galaxy. They can survive conditions that would kill most species instantly. The first joint human-alien mission proved this point dramatically. A team of human explorers, wearing simple protective suits, walked casually into an environment that their alien colleagues considered a death zone. The humans were exploring a crashed spacecraft on a high-oxygen moon, while their alien partners watched nervously from sealed command centers. "You're sure you're comfortable in there?" Captain Smith asked through the radio, watching the humans work in the oxygen-rich atmosphere. "Comfortable." One of the human explorers laughed. "The oxygen level here is lower than Earth's. We could probably take our helmets off if we needed to." The aliens learned quickly that humans hadn't been exaggerating about their capabilities. When a solar flare threatened a research station, human engineers worked continuously for 48 hours to fix the problem, their bodies naturally repairing the minor radiation damage they received. "Don't you need to rest?" an alien scientist asked the human repair team. "We'll sleep when we're done," came the reply. This is nothing compared to emergency shifts in Earth hospitals. The galaxy's shipbuilding industry was revolutionized by human designs. While alien ships were sterile environments dependent on artificial systems, human ships included gardens, recycling ecosystems, and backup systems based on natural processes. Their vessels could repair themselves, produce their own food, and maintain breathable atmospheres indefinitely. "It's not just about survival," a human engineer explained to a conference of alien scientists. "It's about creating living systems that can adapt to problems we haven't even thought of yet." The aliens were amazed when humans started modifying their spacesuits to be more comfortable in extreme environments. While alien protection suits were complex machines designed to completely isolate their wearers, human suits worked with their natural durability. "Why make things more complicated than they need to be?" a human designer said. "Our bodies already know how to handle radiation, temperature changes, and high-stress environments. We just need to help them do their job." But the biggest shock came when humans began offering their services as emergency responders across the galaxy. Their ability to function in high-oxygen environments, resist radiation, and work for long periods made them perfect for disaster response. When a space station's atmosphere was contaminated with oxygen, everyone expected it to be a catastrophe. Instead, a human emergency team walked in with basic protective gear, fixed the problem, and even cleaned up afterward. They treated one of the most dangerous possible accidents as a routine maintenance issue. "I still can't believe you consider our normal atmosphere to be contamination," one of the human rescuers said afterward. "For us, that's just a nice spring day." The Galactic Council had to create new protocols just to deal with human capabilities. Their classification as Deathworlders came with special privileges and responsibilities. Humans became the go-to species for exploring dangerous worlds, handling hazardous materials, and conducting high-risk research. Looking back, Dr. Brown said during a scientific conference, "We were so wrong about humans being weak. Their harsh environment didn't limit them. It made them incredibly strong. They don't just survive in conditions we consider lethal. They thrive in them." A year after first contact, humanity had exploration teams on a dozen worlds previously considered too dangerous for settlement. Their space program expanded rapidly, combining their durability with alien technology to push deeper into space than ever before. "Remember when we thought they were trapped in their toxic world?" Captain Smith asked Dr. Brown as they watched a human team terraform their first alien planet. "Now we know better," Dr. Brown replied. "They weren't trapped at all. They were training, growing stronger, preparing for the challenges of space, and we're lucky to have them as allies." The galaxy had learned an important lesson. What looked like weakness from one perspective could be incredible strength from another. The humans weren't limited by their deadly environment. They were empowered by it. The species that breathed poison had become the galaxy's greatest explorers, and the stars themselves would never be the same.